What up? It's the Dropping Dimes podcast. I'm your host, Mark Veer, and welcome to episode number 30. We're diving into season 4 with Coach's Corner. Really excited to have two very high credible coaches in front of me. I have Andrew Brewer from Alamo Heights and Brett Jewasko from O'Connor. Fellas, how we doing?
Great. Good morning.
Good morning. Excited to be here.
I appreciate you both coming on. We'll dive right into the podcast. Andrew, we'll start with you. I know a lot of people know you in San Antonio, but you actually did start your coaching career somewhere else. So just kind of give everybody a background, how coaching started for you and kind of where you are today.
Yeah. Well, I started in 2000 at the Winston School in Dallas, Texas. I had a high school teammate who was the high school basketball teammate who was the head basketball coach there, needed an assistant, and I was eager to go somewhere different. And I spent 4 years up there at the Winston School in Dallas. And then after that, I went to Houston, went to Hightower High School, and I was there for 2 years. I was David Peavy's assistant. And then I got married, had my daughter Paige, and Meredith and I both thought that being closer to family would have been ideal. And also, I graduated from Alamo Heights High School, and that was always kind of where I wanted to end up. And so I said, let's give it a shot. And we moved to San Antonio in 2006, and I was the freshman coach at Alamo Heights for 5 years under my high school basketball coach, Charlie Bogus. Then after the 2011 season to 10-11 season, he retired, and I became the head coach in 2012, that season. So I've been there, absolutely love it, love the community, love the kids, got great supportive parents. We've been successful, which really helps. And no, I mean, this is a great time to be alive. My son's a junior, get to coach him for 2 more years. It's the family business. My wife is involved and loves it, and we're having a ball. We really are. Yeah, just finished 14 years at Alamo Heights, so it's been good.
Yep, appreciate it. I didn't know. We talked a little off pod. I can't believe you're going into your 15th season. I've known you that long. So, yeah, awesome. And we'll dive into some other things with your son and Alamo Heights and how successful you were, especially this past season. Brett, same question for you.
So let's trace my coaching roots, basketball roots back to childhood. My grandfather was a high school basketball coach here in town at McCollum High School, Denny Smith. And so kind of growing up and just wanted to be in the gym and at his games and that type of thing is probably what fostered it. And then fortunate to play for some great coaches during my time as a player was Stan Bonowitz at East Central High School, and then for Coach Buddy Meyer, and then Jim Zelsnack at St. Mary's University. So that's probably where a lot of the inspiration came, and we've all been coached by great coaches that had an influence on us. And then from there, starting my career, I started off in a middle school that fed into McCollum High School 1 year, and then I had 3 years coaching at Seguin High School under Dwayne Gerlich. Actually had some battles with Coach Brewer. We were both coaching freshman basketball when I was in Seguin, and he was at Alamo Heights at that time. We were in the same district. Those were fun times. And then I was an assistant at Holmes High School for 1 year with Jarvin Hall before coming over to O'Connor. So this is year 12 just completed for me at O'Connor High School. Very blessed, incredible community, great kids, great parents. All of those things have combined to allow us to have some success there, and it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Appreciate you both doing those intros. So here's the first question I always start with, and I apologize, it's a little bit loaded. Brett, we'll start with you. What I like about this question is you both played here. You've both been around some really, really good coaches, and now you're going into, 15th season and 13th season. So you've been around San Antonio basketball from a player perspective, from young coaches, and now I would say very seasoned, incredible coaches. Where do you feel San Antonio basketball is today? And we're strictly talking from the boys and the high school level.
Great question. And those are, you can look at this in so many different ways. And I think that's probably part of the fun of it. I think for us, just looking at recent history here, this past year, having, Coach Brewer make state semifinals, and then, of course, Harlan and Brennan as well, which is in our district in Northside ISD. I think that speaks highly of high school basketball, here in town, having, and just looking at the 5A and 6A level, for those examples. But I do think it speaks highly of, where we're at and maybe, where we're headed, hopefully, is the idea, with the new format of UIL and having Division I, Division II. I do think that's going to open up more opportunities for San Antonio to be able to, not only succeed, in getting to the state level, but also I think we're going to see more go up there and being able to win and advance, which says even more about, I guess, our growth there. I think one of the big challenges that we have in San Antonio too, if I just think all the way back from my high school days to now is just the changing landscape with the growth. Had incredible growth in San Antonio, and I'll just speak to like Northside ISD. We've been constantly building new schools for the past 20 or so. I think that landscape is constantly changing, and so there's some challenges to that as attendance zones change and where people are moving changes. But I also think there's opportunity in it as well.
Okay. And then the add-on question for you, kind of touched it. I was going to ask you, did you like the way that we had the two divisions like football this past season?
I think anytime you have an opportunity for more teams to be successful and to make runs, like those are memories that kids are going to have forever and communities are going to have forever. And I don't think that ever can be a negative thing. And if you look at the number of schools that compete in Texas, all we're doing is kind of with the two divisions now is making it to where it's a little more like it is in other states, quite honestly, because we have such large numbers that we're competing in that one bracket of each classification.
Okay, love it. Yeah, Coach Brewer, same for you. Just where do you feel we are today?
Well, and I'd be interested to look at the real data on this, but it feels like, and this has been the same way for the last 20 years since I've been around coaching, that the sheer depth of talent in the Metroplex in Houston is incredible. Like everybody's got dudes in the Metroplex and in Houston. Everybody's got players. Having coached in Houston, having coached in Dallas, and having coached in San Antonio, I came to San Antonio in year 7 of my career, and I was blown away with the coaching. I was the freshman coach, and I was blown away with the coaching. So I was coaching against, in freshman games, I was coaching against Kimball McCone and Brett Jewasko. And it was like we were making an adjustment. They were making an adjustment. We'd make an adjustment. They'd make an adjustment. And I had just been a JV coach in Fort Bend ISD, and there were no adjustments. There was just like, I'm going to stop pressing for a moment. Okay, well, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to press some more now, or I'm going to sub. Like there was no adjustments. There was nothing. And then coming here, the coaching was incredible. I think maybe it's because we don't have the incredible depth of talent that they have in the Metroplex and in Houston, that we're kind of forced to be that way. And also if we had better talent, would the athletes be as willing to take sophisticated coaching kind of the way they do in San Antonio? I don't know. I've been at Alamo Heights for so long now, I kind of lose touch with what the real world's doing. So I think San Antonio has always had a great product, always had well-coached teams. I've got to really work hard to prepare every night because I know everybody else in my district is going to be really well prepared. So that really, you have to continue to work. You cannot just relax and expect to win games. Like you have to prepare. You have to scout. You have to watch film. You have to train your kids. You got to become a better coach because there's young, hungry coaches coming behind us all the time. And the next part of your question was about the split conferences this year. Really kind of, I understand Ray Zapata at the UIL. He said that he wants to have more teams have more access to state championships. And that kind of makes sense, kind of, but when you get down to it and I'll speak from personal experience, my dream has always been to coach my son in the state tournament and, beware what you wish for. Like we got it, and God bless the people who were fantastic at Goliad, but that wasn't my dream. That wasn't like to coach my kid in the state semifinals at Goliad, and I was pretty outspoken about that at the THSC advisory committee meeting. You kind of watered it down. You got rid of a round, but we still had to beat John Jay. We still had to beat Liberty Hill. We still had to go down to Corpus Christi Ray, win a game. Okay, we didn't, but it's still state. And we made the best of a situation that was a little bit disappointing, but it was still a historic year. And I don't want to take anything away from what our kids did, we had a fantastic, memorable, awesome 30-win season. I know with progress, you're going to have things that change, but it's, and we're the same way. Like we grew up loving high school basketball and going to the Irwin Center for the state tournament. And I know that we feel the same way. You don't want to have a lot of good old day syndrome, but you do also want state to be special. And at some point you need to quit being on the phone trying to find a venue and find referees and find basketballs and find all this. You're at state, for God's sake. At some point, UIL needs to be in charge because they're taking the gate anyway. So, that's kind of where I stand on all that.
I agree with you. I didn't like it. I'll be honest. I didn't like it one bit. From a referee standpoint, it was interesting because it was the schools got a lot of control to choose who they wanted. At the state, that's kind of out of the hands. And I didn't like that semifinals were played at neutral sites. So I didn't even like the regionals were played at neutral sites. I like the regional tournaments where you go play, all those teams are there. If you win, you advance. And I didn't like the way that
I don't interrupt you, but there's one thing that you hit a nerve. So we played Corpus Christi Ray on Monday because we lost a flip. Fortunately, we got to go to the regional semifinals and watch Liberty Hill, and we went down on the Tuesday. They played at Ingleside. Mark, they had 50 people in the stands for the regional semifinals. That's a problem. I think the regional tournaments, you talk to folks from the Valley, and being a 5A guy, and 4A back before that, we had folks, from Edinburgh who would come up to San Antonio for the regional tournament and make a weekend of it. And I think they make a big deal about the travel and all this. It's the regionals. This is the highlight of most coaches' careers. We're going to make a weekend of it. If we lose on Friday, well, damn it, we're going to spend the night and make a day. I think that's special. And it was silly to me to watch Liberty Hill, a damn good team. And their girls were still playing also, so that it's part something to do with it. Anyway, I just didn't like it. I just remember playing the regional tournament at Blossom, and 5,000 people in the stands. I think we can do better, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. I've been fortunate to work a ton of regional final games, and I talked to a lot of referees. They said the same thing. Just the atmosphere was not the same. Very low crowd. I think even at your game, the fans didn't have much when y'all played Fort Bend, whoever the team that you played, right? I know that you guys had a great crowd. But yeah, so I think I understand what they were doing. I think UIO has some work. We'll see what happens. I wasn't a big fan of it, but that's up to debate. Coach Brewer, I got an add-on question for you. So I love what you said about coaches really got to coach in San Antonio. The demographic is different. You coming from Houston and Dallas, seeing that. So what do you feel the most important thing for San Antonio is as an identity for high school boys basketball? What has to be our identity? Because we're not the most athletic, don't have 6'7" kids walking around Walmart. I say it all the time. You find them in Dallas, they don't even play basketball. So the DNA is a little different here. What do you feel that is the most important thing? And then maybe a few things, but where you feel we are in that as far as an identity?
I think that maybe and I'm just spitballing here, and I guess when the rubber meets the road, I think what you're saying is, what do we got to do to win a game at state? What does Region 4 have to do to win a game at state? Well, I think what we might have to do is double down on our high school programs and not have. Here's the thing. I'm going to tell you, a long time ago, I was at coaching school in Houston, and I was sitting next to a guy who worked for the old Fox Southwest, and he called Astros games. He was off that night, and I says, man, y'all call a ton of state championship football games, and you call the state tournament in basketball. What have you learned about all these great high school programs? And he says the common denominator among all great high school football, basketball, baseball programs is the young kids who in the community who will do everything to be mule shoe mules, or all they want to do is be a Lipan Indian. That's all they want. I think that we have maybe an advantage in San Antonio of having some good high school programs. And if we could double down on that, and that probably is going to go into, coaches doing more to develop their kids in the off season and having a hand in that, and less so the AAU coach. Well, work hand in hand with the AAU coaches. But I think that we have a ton of really good players here. We just need to have them stay in their schools and have them develop those players from the ground up. And frankly, I'm talking about what I know, right? And I know that I had a couple of really good JV players last year, and they're going to be really good varsity players for us this year. And they know the system, and they know what we're doing. And it's not just go play. We're going to have a system, and we have vertical alignment. We'll do the same thing in 8th grade that we do in 12th grade. And maybe that's what we got to do better, because the coaching is good enough. But if you're going to go against people with better players, you got to have an edge somewhere, and you got to be able to steal a bucket when other people have better players, get a stop, take a charge, out of timeout, into quarter sets, do something that other people don't do. And that's one thing we do better, I think, in San Antonio than other places.
Yeah,
because you have to.
Yeah, and we'll dive into the AAU high school relationship next. Brett, similar kind of question for you. What are your thoughts on that?
I think Coach Brewer made some good points. It's doing it as a collective, right? Within your program, and so I think having an attachment to the community is a big part of that, and he kind of hit on it. And one of the things that we've done, at O'Connor is something simple, right? But we started a future Panther basketball camp when we got there 12 years ago, and it's one of the biggest camps in the city every year now. And I think it speaks more to the connection that we're creating to the community and to the kids in that area, and the idea that he hit on of, like, when I grow up, I want to be a Panther. I want to go to OC. So I think it's more about those types of things where when you get there, the result is you've got this connection, like this unbreakable group on the floor that is willing to play for each other, wants to play for each other. They're playing for something bigger. Those things are probably a lot harder to create than it sounds, I guess. But I do think when you are not more talented on the higher end, those are the things that, if you look at just like top end talent, most of us are not going to have the top end talent to compete with, but even a lot of the Austin schools as well. And so I think that's where we've been able to make some headway in our program, and I do think that would, that's something that could help across the.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what came up to me when I had my podcast with Jay Govan and Stacey Moore, and Jay said it. Jay just said is like he feel like San Antonio and some places have lost the love to stay at the school you're supposed to go to. You're zoned at this school. You should like that's your home, and you should really want to be whatever it is, a Panther, a Mule, whatever it may be, right? So I don't want to be negative on the podcast, but we joke about the transfer portal for high school. I just heard not too long ago some other kids are moving around, going to private schools, and I was like, that's really hurting the programs they're leaving. So what is that a problem, Brett, in San Antonio, that we're seeing more now than ever before, that kids are going to other high schools, getting recruited by other coaches? I mean, I hate to see it, but I don't know if it's always been this way or it's just getting worse and worse.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it certainly seems more prevalent. I think you can't stop people from, making the decisions that they're going to make on whatever is best for, their kid or their child or whatever. What we can do in our programs is, is create the best product possible. Being player first is something that, we really pride ourselves on, and like really pouring into the people, pouring into whether that's the kids, the parents, all of it. Like we say all the time, like, I want this to be the best experience possible for all of our kids, all of our people. And certainly there's going to be decisions where something has to give, there's sacrifice here and there, but as much as possible, we're going to try to create that type of environment. And I think when you make that as attractive as possible, then that's the best chance that we have to keep our own kids in the attendance zone that they're supposed to go to. Keep O'Connor kids at O'Connor, creating that bond, that sense of community that we talked about. I think that's a big deal. And I think when you get that right, you do have a chance to win, on a high level, because there is that connection. And I just can't speak enough to that. Some of our most successful teams, that connection is incredible. And you don't get that with a collection of talent, with guys that have moved around and that have popped in, and they're still trying to figure out who's who and what the dynamics are in that program. And so, I think there's some negatives on that side too, where you do have a collection of talent, but I think there's a little bit of figuring out the pecking order and figuring out, how do we collectively bring out the best in each other. And so I think that could be a downside of as well. When you're bouncing around, you're not going to have quite, that level.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's got to be frustrating for some coaches in the city to have to worry about that. I don't think you two do, right? I think you guys, from my understanding, it's like your players always stay with you, and that's why you guys play the way you do, because you've had them for a long time through your program. You understand the chemistry. But Andrew, it's got to be frustrating for some of these coaches in the city that are losing kids every year, and they have to worry about that. And I feel like some coaches I've talked to, now they just can't go coach. Maybe they can't coach the way they want to coach. Now they're concerned about, if I don't treat the kid this way or I do this, I may end up losing them. And at the end of the day, you guys want to win games. Let's be real. You need talent to win games.
Yeah, first of all, you can't please everybody. And as soon as you try to please everybody, you're going to please nobody. That's the first thing. Second thing is, as long as I do my best, continue to learn, continue to do better, and feel confident that I have a really good program, and then you understand that kids are going to leave if they're not happy. And frankly, here's where I think. If a kid leaves my program, good. Then they don't understand what we're doing. And if you don't appreciate what we're doing, then we don't need you. We're good every year, and I want you to be along for the ride. But if you don't want to do what it takes, and we're pretty clear about like what it takes to get on the floor. Like, I'm real transparent about what it takes to get on the floor. And you can blame my criteria. You can, but you can't say that I was unclear with you about what it takes to get on the floor. And so if the grass is greener somewhere else, great, like go. But I just feel real good about where our program is. Now, that's not to say I'm complacent by any means. Like, I always want to get better. I always want to try new things. That's one of the things I appreciate about Brett is whenever we scrimmage, like, damn, he didn't do any of that last year. And like, he's doing new stuff, and I appreciate that. So we're always trying to get better. And, kids are going to leave, but, here's the thing about Alamo Heights is parents have paid a premium for the school. And so by that, by the merit of that, they're going to stay because of the school. And hopefully the basketball is on, the athletics is the cherry on top. But also, we're not going to get any move-ins. It's just prohibitive for most people to come in. So, you have to come to terms with reality and got to live in reality, and the kids are going to leave. And so, but you got to be able to sleep at night and, get up and work your butt off and do the best you can and have confidence that you're running a great program. And if kids leave, they leave. And I just don't think you can, like a player can't play scared. A coach can't coach scared. You got to do what's right. And I'll tell you what, experience is a great educator. I'm so much better than I was 10 years ago, just because of, the calluses you build up over time. And you realize, whoa, I didn't handle that great 10 years ago. And you just, you know how to avoid stepping in it. Like, I don't step in it as often as I used to. So yeah, it's frustrating, but also you want to reward the people who, and we do reward the people who invest in our kids and invest in our program and invest in our community. So, part of being an Alamo Heights Mule is you go to volleyball games. You go to football games, you go to softball games, we support each other. And if you don't like it, there's the track, like you're running, like, then it's part of it. I mean, granted, I grew up here and it's personal to me, but we're going to put back into the community in hopes that they come support us too in basketball.
Yeah, I love it. Sorry for dropping the transfer. That was not on the script. So we could talk about the transfer portal and kids not staying and doing that and all for hours. So I appreciate you guys touching it. All right, let's dive into AAU. We'll talk a little bit about this. Andrew, we'll start with you because you have a son that's been in the system. I know, Brett, yours a little younger. We see each other on the soccer field all the time. But so let's just talk about the AAU and high school relationship. You both kind of said it. Obviously, on other podcasts, we've talked about it a bunch. It needs to be aligned. We understand that. But they're also very, very different worlds. The AAU world and the high school world are different, and they should be different. But yes, there needs to be some kind of relationship that makes it all work for the individual. We're talking about your kids playing for multiple teams, whatever it may be. You want them to have a successful summer and come back a better basketball player. That's the goal, right? So where do you feel we are? Your personal opinion on what you've gone through. Where do you feel AAU and high school relationship is on the boys' side right now?
The first thing that comes to mind is, man, I really sympathize with parents who are trying to figure it all out, because I've been a head coach here for a long time and I'm still trying to figure it out. My son is going to be a junior, and he's been on 3 teams. He's finished each season, but each season his needs have changed and he's wanted to do something different. So we've had to be a consumer. It's different than playing for your high school team. I'm paying money for this, so I know the questions to ask. Most parents probably don't. Like, here's the deal. Like this, if a parent said this to me, we'd have problems, but my son has got to play half the game because what I'm paying.
Right.
If a parent said that to me, I said, kick rocks. Like, that's not how we do it around here. But it's different, and it kind of it feels gross a little bit, but also, I need to know, are you going to have your roster of 12 or 8?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you have to be a consumer a little bit. And I am figuring it out. I can imagine the layperson trying to figure it out. And here's the thing. As soon as a parent figures it out, their kid graduates, and then a new parent comes along. And I've only got one son. I've only got to go through it one time. And it's really difficult. There is no relationship to speak of between schools and AAU programs. I really am amazed that our coach finds gym space, because it's hard to find gym space. Our 2 gyms that we've had practices at this year are 27 miles apart, 2 different gyms. So it's hard to do. But I think that kids need a break from their high school coach and they need to learn new things. If I've got 11 players on the varsity, I want them playing on 11 different teams. So they come back together with a new skill set. We have to have it, and it's really good. I think my son's had a really good summer, but I really understand now how much time it takes to be good. And you've got to put in so much time. We stole away for Father's Day weekend, and he needed a little bit of a break, and he missed a practice. But I don't advocate that. But I think sometimes you just need a break. just for your mind, really. You got to love it. And he wasn't happy about it, but I wanted to get out of town.
Yeah.
So no, it's been mostly a really good experience. Uh,
Okay, that's a good perspective from you as a parent that is in it with a son. I don't believe you have a son that's playing AAU basketball right now. Is that fair to say?
No, we jump in some tournaments, but oldest is 11, and so he'll play tournaments during the winter in between baseball and soccer. But that's about the extent of it. Not high level at this point.
Okay, so where are you at on this then? Just from the outside looking in, and then you're probably going to be here pretty soon with your son playing some AAU basketball, even select soccer. What are your thoughts on the relationship we have in the city with both?
As far as between the high school and the AAU programs,
Yep.
I think both of them have a key role in the player development, and I think that's the biggest thing is, kind of what Coach Brewer hit on. If you got to find the right environment for you, as a player, and that's going to be different for everybody. Depends on the dynamics of who's on the team, who's coaching the team. Certainly has a lot to do with it, and I know that's one thing that's a challenge. Even from program to program, you have some really good programs, but who's coaching that individual age group at that level, that can make all the impact, because that's the person who has their hands on the kid and how they're playing the most. So I think those are all factors that are a really big deal, but it is very different. AAU basketball and high school basketball are different. I think we're getting to the point, maybe just on the high school side, more of us have either like for me, came up playing AAU basketball, and so I know that it's a part of it. It's part of my development, and it had a lot to do with some of the success that I was able to have from being in that environment. I think we have more coaches now that have either played in it, coached in it, and so they see it as part of the process. And I think when we look at it that way, and on the high school side, we're trying to be very cognizant of who our kids, are with, what they're doing, how they're playing, with those groups, because kind of what Coach Brewer hit on, we can learn so much. I can learn so much from watching our kids play in a different environment, different dynamic, not in our system, different voice. Like if somebody will, post something that our kid had a great weekend, in Dallas, and this was his stat line. For me, like, I'm going to get on Baller TV and I'm going to find his minutes, and I'm going to watch, because I can learn something. Like, okay, well, how are they using him, or what is he excelling at? Because maybe that's something that, with a different dynamic and different, using him in a different way, that's something we can incorporate into our program. So to me, those are the areas where they can go hand in hand, and I look at kind of our open gym and pickup setting similarly as well. We can learn a lot about our players from watching them play in a different environment. And those are things that, okay, here's stuff that they do well. We can use that next year in the high school season.
Okay, love it. I was actually going to ask you like a follow-on question from a coach's perspective. You kind of touched on it, but just some add-on questions for you. One, do you know where all your kids are playing? Do you have relationships with those individual coaches? That always comes up. The kind of narrative of what people think in San Antonio is like, oh, the high school season's over. High school coaches go on break. We're good. We just pass them on to whoever. I know I can see your face, Brewer. And then we're good. And hey, I don't really care who they play for. You're not going to see me at the Gasso. I'm not going to jump on a Baller TV or whatever and watch them play. I'm just saying that's like the perception people have. It's like, okay, you have them for the 3 or 4 months. Hopefully they come back a better player. I know that's not true because I'm kind of in between it. But so kind of talk a little bit about that. You did a little bit that if you see something, you want to go watch them play. But do you have those type of relationships where they're playing at? And then on the flip side, are AAU coaches reaching out to you and giving you some feedback on what they're doing well, what they're not? Because I feel that's where it's lacking. Is we're not really kind of having that open relationship. Some do, some don't. But I think that's where we can be a little tighter in the city.
Well, it's like dealing with any other head coach or any other professional. Like, I try to communicate. Like every winter, the last 3 winters, I have the cell phone numbers of all the club coaches, and I'll shoot them a text about tryouts. And just like anybody in any business, like, some are really good at communicating, some aren't. It's just like anything else. But I will say this, like, I want to be really involved in supporting my kids in the spring. And I want them to be really involved in supporting each other in the spring and summer. So I'll give you an example of what we try to do is I send out an email every single Sunday, year round, about what's going on in our program. At the bottom of the email is just kind of like, links. Here's our schedule for next season. Here is a link to photos taken. Here is our summer league schedule, blah, blah, blah. One of the things also on there is a database or a matrix or a composite schedule of every single player and where they're going to be every single weekend. So hopefully, I'm going to College Station this weekend. Let me click on this link. Who else is in College Station? When can I go see my teammate play? So on more than one occasion, we've been in Dallas and like, hey, we finish up at 1. The Toros are playing at 2:30. Let's just go a mile down the road and go watch the Toros play. So, that way I get to support my kids. My parents know that I support the kids, but also like, let's see what the Toros are up to. Let's go see what Premier is up to. Let's go see what somebody else is up to. And so, I'll say hello to that coach. Now, will I be this involved when Jack's not playing? I don't know. I hope to. I mean, I'll be an empty nester at that point, so maybe. But, that's one of the things that, you can be as involved. Like one of the things my assistant always says is like, guys, you can be as involved as you want to be in this team. You can be like, if you're not playing, you can be as involved as you want to be. And the same thing is true in the spring and summer. The head coaches can be as involved as they want to be with their teams. You have to have a presence on social media. You got to see who's playing well. Like Brett said, like, oh, this kid played well. Let me obviously repost it, but then go, talk to them about it. It's about relationships. A coach can't roll their eyes and say, oh, my kid had 4 threes over the weekend. You got to say, hey, congratulations, you hit 4 threes this weekend. Great job. How did you get those? It's just being a grown up and being mature about it and understanding that we're all trying, like we want to win clearly, but like we support all of our kids. We want all of our kids to be successful, and you got to support them and congratulate them, and all that good stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. That's good to know. I hope a lot of other high school coaches are doing something similar, because I think the perception is it's not. Brett, question for you. We talked a little bit about load management. Thoughts on a healthy schedule and what that looks like? Because if I was a parent, let's say I play for O'Connor Panthers, right? I'm like, my season's over and I want to come back and be a better player, right? Obviously, that's the goal. But if I'm a parent, I'm not really a basketball parent. I'm like, okay, I see my kid playing almost every weekend, especially in like May and July. June's a little slower, but I'm playing 6-7 games on a weekend. Like, it's a lot, but unfortunately that is the kind of climate we're in. And then a lot of back-to-back weekends and things like that, and playing way more games than practice. Very different than high school, very different than when I was in Europe. In Europe, we play one game on the weekend. You lose, you're done. You got to wait until next week to play one more game, and we practice, 3-4 days. It's different. I get it. But what are your thoughts on load management with athletes today? Is that a conversation you're having with your parents and athletes, or are parents reaching out to you?
I would say not so much with the parents, but certainly with our kids and our players, right? And so we're having those conversations all the time. We've changed a lot just because in our program, just because we know how much our kids are playing. So like, let's take, for example, when our high school season ends, the time that we take before we start our off season is greater now, because I know that all these kids are going right into, especially if you have a long playoff run, these kids are about to go right into playing, and they're not going to stop till August. So if I don't give them those 2 weeks right there at spring break, that maybe in the old days it was different. I played at D Central with Coach Bonowitz. If we lost in a playoff game on Tuesday night, off season started on Wednesday. 0 days off. I mean, ever. And that's not wrong, but I think the environment's different now. These kids are going to go play a lot. And so load management, if that's whatever phrase we want to use, we better be very cognizant of that. And so for us, that's one example. But then, on Mondays during our spring off season, we're going to shoot more. We have a classroom session, that we use once a week, and that's going to be on Mondays. And that's because these guys are coming off playing however many games that weekend. And so for us, we're not going to bang our head against the wall and run our kids into the ground. Product's not very good in practice because those kids aren't able to go as hard, or they're not going as hard, and then everybody's frustrated. And so for us, let's be smarter about it. Let's work with their schedule. Another thing we do every spring off season is I have all of our players build out a sample weekly schedule, right? And so that just, for us, that informs us so much of what they're doing on the week. So what nights are you practicing? So I know how often they're practicing. If you're doing trainings on the side, when are you doing those things? All of that, so that that informs how we run our off season from the standpoint of, we know what they're getting elsewhere, but also maybe what they're not getting as much of. And so we can spend a little bit more time on, while also being smart about taking care of their bodies. In the summer, for our skills, we don't do skills on Monday during the summer. So we're able to work with them, But right now we go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And again, it's coming off the weekend. They're playing a lot of basketball. We do have our hands on them all year now from a coaching side in high school, which we didn't before. So I think trying to be a little bit smarter about some of these things and working with them is the route that we've taken. And I think it's important for their bodies.
Okay, I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. You're actually working with your athletes 3 days a week right now during the summer?
We are, yes.
Wow.
Yes, Tuesday or Thursday.
I didn't know
But
that.
we don't, or Fridays.
Yeah, UIL allows an hour a day of skill work. So
Okay, that's
we're gonna
I didn't know that. I thought during the summer, AAU basketball kind of took priority and then the high school coaches took back. I love that. So every high school program in San Antonio is able to work with their kids 1 hour per day. It's fantastic. Okay. I hope every coach in San Antonio is doing that. Just going to throw that out. You guys may have just set up some coaches, some parents listening and be like, my high school is doing nothing right now. So high school coaches, you ain't doing nothing. You're going to get blown up with some parents like, hey, we're supposed to be doing something, at least an hour a day. All right. Well, great. I learned something. I had no idea that UI allowed you to do that. That's really good. That's good stuff. All right. Let's talk about recruitment. So again, I'm kind of in this world where I talk a lot to high school coaches, AAU coaches, and they believe that you get offers in the AAU season, the club season. I just know at the TABC on the girls this past week in College Station, I believe there was over 400 coaches there. I'm sure it's going to be even more at the TABC in Dallas this upcoming weekend. Well, we'll start with you, Andrew, in regards to this. What is the role of a high school coach in regards to college recruiting? I know it from the AAU world, but I think a lot of parents may not know how it works with you guys. Are you in contact with them? Can they contact you? Like say TBC, let's say we're at TBC this weekend and they like some of your kids. They want to give them an offer or an interest or get in contact with them. How does it all work during the season here now, possibly in the off season or leading up to the season? What kind of conversations are you having with college coaches?
So like not very many.
Okay.
Like what I try to, when it comes down to college recruiting is, I tell parents, like I'll be as involved as or not involved as much as you want. One thing I do tell parents whether they want to hear it or not, and I get a college player probably once every 3 or 4 years. And what I tell them is use basketball to change your life when you're 40. Like, here's the thing. Like, I get high academic D3s if I get college players at all. So let's find you a high academic D3 maybe you wouldn't get into otherwise, so that instead of summering at Port A is great, but maybe you're summering at Martha's Vineyard. Maybe your life is totally different. So let's look at it from that perspective. I think a lot of parents look at it like college for free, which is awesome. Don't get me wrong, awesome. But also like let's look at this from a greater lens. Like how can you really change your life based on the school that you go to? So some schools that you never have heard of, that never have heard of you, with a little bit of research and some hard work, you can find a special place, where you're interning at Fortune 250s. So look at it that way. I think that parents don't know enough. And like I was talking about club basketball, as soon as parents figured out the recruitment process, the kid's gone and it's over before they've kind of figured out how to do it. And I've done it a little bit, not as many as some other coaches, but that's my perspective on it. And I, even anymore, like college coaches don't reach out to me hardly at all. I'll reach out to them about a kid, but they just kind of do it on their own, it seems like these days.
Yeah, for sure. Brett, same question for you.
Yeah, I think, it's funny you think about like the AAU world and club basketball and how much that's changed. Just the sheer number of teams and the number of kids that are playing, right? It's everybody. I was talking to a good friend of mine that I played with in college, and so we're having this conversation, and he said, well, when I was playing, it was like maybe the best kid on the high school team played in the summer, but you're telling me that pretty much all your kids are on a team. I said, absolutely, yeah. There's all kinds of levels, right? So I think for parents, just understanding that playing college basketball is extremely rare. And then if you want to talk about free school, that's a whole different conversation. And just maybe understanding how difficult that is. Because, one thing my buddy said, he goes, oh, so you're telling me that it's not an investment, as far as putting your money into your child for trainings and club and that type of thing. But no, absolutely. You're paying for the experiences. And that's a big deal, right? Because I think all that stuff matters. I'm not telling anybody not to do it. But I would say just understand one of them to understand just how difficult it is to get somebody to pay for your school. That's extremely rare, especially in San Antonio. We don't see that as much. As far as the recruitment side, I mean, the reality is they are going to get seen more on the AAU club side. Those TABC has helped with that, but that's one event per year. But it certainly has helped with that. But to your point, there's going to be hundreds of coaches. There's going to be any school that you can think of is going to be there next weekend. And so that is big to have that in the high school, have a little bit more of a role from that standpoint. But we see it with our kids that are being recruited. That's through the AAU side. And then maybe as the coach gets more serious about that kid, now maybe then they get in touch with us and they want to find out more when it's kind of time to make a decision of, do we want this kid or not? What can you tell me about them? That type of thing. But certainly more of the conversation is going to be through the AAU side. I think our role is to be a resource for the kids. I like what Coach Brewer said. I'll be as involved or as uninvolved as you want. And sometimes it's necessary to get out and make calls and email and try to help get your kids, on the radar if that's something that they really want that opportunity to play. They want somebody to open the door to allow them to go to school and play basketball. And so we've had more of that, talking about the Division III academic side of things.
I think it's criminal. Now, I choose that word specifically. That a lot of these tournaments are preying on parents to get college scholarships. Mark, I paid $90, not a scholarship player in the gym.
Yeah.
Not one. Like I think it's criminal, and like it's because parents have dreams and their hope, they'll pay it because I'm investing in my kid. No, I think it's terrible. I think it's maybe criminal is too, but it's definitely price gouging.
It's criminal. It's felonies. I call it felonies, not even misdemeanor.
I don't know how much it costs to rent a gym. So maybe I'm out of pocket. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the living, and I understand that, but I just think it's Brett said it, extremely rare. So let's take sports for what they are. Like I had a conversation with a sophomore, and I was like, bro, this is going to be a really hard year for you. Junior year is going to be a little bit more fun. Senior year is going to be special. And then you're going to go to college and you'll be able to put up with some stern talking and some, like, you get a big job one day, you're on a project, you're not going to be the project manager. You're going to have to get coffee, your first job. And then before long, you'll be the project manager. You're making big bucks and you got a house on the lake, bro. But until then, like, you got to learn to like do hard things. And that's the value of sports, is doing hard things. My son went from not playing to starting to not playing. And you cannot rip that bronze medal off his neck. Like it was hard, but we got a bronze medal. And like, that's hard, but now I'm gonna be better for it. And then freaking watch out when he's a senior, because he's been through some stuff. That's the value of sports, to me.
But
I think a college scholarship it's for like the top 0.5%. Like, that's why I say, like, let's go to like Shelby Lane with the Claremont McKinney. Like, works at freaking Google. Like, that's how you use sports.
Yep. Yeah. So here's the kind of weird thing about it, right? Is if I'm an AAU organized, I run my program, right? Those are the conversations you want to have. Parents, I'm running a business, right? So I'm gonna say, hey, I have 50 kids in my program, and what am I gonna do? Tell parents, hey, one of you may play college. What kind of business model is that? Like, shit, I'm gonna go play for somebody else. So I think it's tough. I think it comes down to the parents. AU coaches, I know they're running a business. They want to try to put their kids in the best possible situations to get scholarships. But I tell parents all the time, no coach can promise you anything. They can't even promise what coach will show up on the end line. They don't. There's so many tournaments, so many options out there. That coach is trying to get on the road, and they're trying to get wherever they can get to see whatever kids the head coach wants them to go see. So a lot of parents, I'll get phone calls like, there was no one on my bench. Okay. Do I go talk to the A? No, you don't talk to the AAU director. They put you in a tournament. It is what it is. There's so many options out there. If you can play, they're going to find you. That's it. Just go play. But I think that's the pressure in the AAU world is, and I notice it with kids. I notice when a kid is a junior and it's their last summer, they play so different. They are basically playing for a scholarship, not even playing the right way anymore. It's just like, hey, I don't care about winning anymore. I just need to go score 20 points in this game because there's a coach on the baseline, right? So it's a really tough world. To both of your points, I think if the parent and the kid, AAU coach and the high school coach, come together and just say, hey, this is probably your level. Let's just start there. And I love what you said. My kid plays, and I see Brett all the time at the soccer field. He plays on FCFC, their top team, their pro academy team. He's a good soccer player. Now, we go to Trinity games. I went to my first Trinity game a few years ago, to your point. Wow. I was like, this is D3 soccer. I grew up in England. That's all I did was play soccer. I called my dad after the game and was like, I didn't think Division 3 was this good. Bunch of guys from England, really good players. And to your point, they got loans. That's not free
Right.
for them, right? Uh,
They love it.
yeah. And I talk to my kid all the time, like, hey, let's go watch Trinity play. He thinks Trinity's the best thing ever. How's that a bad thing?
Right.
I'm not going to North Carolina to go watch that game. Like, we're not going to go do that, right? So I tell parents all the time, my kid's 11, but that's like, I think D1 is put out there so much, like Division 1, Division 1, Division 1. To your point, go watch Trinity. I'm not doing that. Go watch Incarnate. I'm not doing that. They think they're above this, right?
Those D1s, the ones you see on TV, are unicorns.
Yes.
They're unicorns.
Yep.
Like,
They're
no.
the Kingston
I'm
Flemings
raising
of
a
the world.
CPA. He's gonna be a damn good one, but like he's not a unicorn.
Right.
Like that's
Yeah. It's where we are, unfortunately, right? I hate to say it, but that's it. I think that's the biggest disconnect. My advice to AAU coaches is kind of talk to the kids the same way you guys talk to them. Yes, it's a different circuit, but man, we've got to be very, very transparent and real with these coaches and these kids to say, hey, this AAU season isn't about you getting scholarships. It's about you just becoming a better person. That's it. Just become a better person, come out a better player, and then hopefully you've learned a lot from it, and then you go back to your high school team a better player too. I mean, that's what it's about. Again, we could talk about it all day. All right, my next question is, all right, well, Brett, I'll go with you. I'm talking about parents. I'm a parent. I try to be the most low maintenance parents there is in the world. My wife is not a low maintenance. She is a high maintenance parent. We struggle with this all the time. I'm a little different because I know so many parents. I know so many coaches. So, I'm kind of in this, but she's not. I would say so many parents are more high maintenance. They're not the low maintenance parents. And I get it. They're spending a ton of money. They're invested. So I just want to know, for your high school program, a lot of parents will be listening. What are some do's and don'ts that you have?
First of all, I guess I'll speak to it from a couple different levels. Certainly as a high school coach, to get to that part, but do have a son that's 11 that's heavily involved in sports, as you kind of hit on the soccer and the baseball side. There's no easy answers. Let me start with that. Wish there was. Brewer, he's gone through it with his son as well. I feel for people because I was fortunate to play college sports. My wife was fortunate to play college sports. Then we both coached after that. So we feel like we have a pretty good perspective, and we struggle with this question all the time of, the right way to support our child and their dreams and what it is. So I would start with that is, what is your kid really wanting to do out of this? What are they trying to get out of this? And having those conversations often with them so that you know that you're supporting, their goals and their dreams. I would say the do's would be the support part, right? If this is what your kid really wants to do, utilizing resources to figure out what it takes. And so, I know the best kids that we've had, they're gonna work out with us, and they're gonna do open gym, and then dad's driving them across town to work with the trainer, to get up shots. Maybe it's AAU practice. And so I think sometimes parent involvement is spun as a negative thing, but I'll just say, like, you're not gonna succeed, as a kid without heavily involved parents, right? Like that. I think that's a big deal, and it shouldn't be a negative. Now, I think where it becomes a negative, as a parent is, if you're trying to dictate your child's journey. I think one of the big things that we got to do as parents, but certainly that I want as a high school coach, is when we do hit those tough situations, how are you reframing that for the kid, for the athlete when they get home? There's all the talk of the car ride home, but can you reframe things for them to where we're looking at this adversity in a productive manner and utilizing it to help them grow? And so I think that's a big part of the parent's role. And I think having conversations with your coach can be an important thing. We welcome that in our program. I'll say that it's not something that we have often. I don't think it's something that we need often, but parents that want to, at the end of the season, just, sit down sometime and say, what do you see and where can we grow? Okay, now we're in this partnership together. That, to me, that's part of our job, as high school coaches, is to be with that. So those are things that I think are good. If you've got the parent on the same page as the kid, coach on the same page as the kid and what they want, and then the AAU coach on the same page as the kid as far as what they're wanting to accomplish, that to me is where you start. I think everything else kind of falls into place when you have those conversations first. But let it be player led. Let it be athlete led.
Easy formula, right?
Yeah. Well,
Easier to
also,
say.
Right.
I,
Andrew, go ahead. So add to it.
I'm going to preface this by saying this. And here is why I think many parents are unhappy. And I think it's unfair to parents. I think it's unfair to coaches. I think what a head high school basketball, football, soccer, baseball coach has to do, the skills they have to be successful at it. I think these skills out in the real world would garner $150,000, $200,000 a year. You have to be so skilled. You have to be able to manage money, manage people, be a really good coach, execute under pressure, look like a professional. If we were to go somewhere else, I would go make $200,000, I think. But I love what I do. So I think that a lot of times you get kids right out of college who love the sport and get into it. And then it's like, oh, this is not about X's and O's at all. It's about relationships. And a lot of people, they found success playing a sport not by talking to people, not by looking people in the eye, not by shaking hands. And they want everybody to know they're in charge. And a lot of mistakes head coaches make is that they forget, no. You're the coach. You don't have to be a jerk. You don't have to scream. You just have to talk, because they're gonna respect you unless you do something that makes them not. And I see this a lot. This is not to bash club. It's just that club coaches, they have a 9 to 5, and then this is on the deal they do on the side, some of them. And so it takes a long time to get good at this. I think a lot of people who are good at individual training is way different than managing a game and winning a game. Anyway, that's not what you asked. You asked about do's and don'ts. I think parents totally have a right to ask, what's your philosophy? Like, what do you believe? I mean, you have a good parents meeting and lay out what you believe. And I think I mentioned that when I talked about how to approach college, playing in college. Parents, ask what you can do to help, because we'll tell you nothing, or listen, here's the deal. I need you to buy some sandwiches. Like, this is what I need. When a kid, I'm big on this. If your kid is not playing, that's a conversation for me and the kid. But if your kid is really struggling socially, mentally, like, I'm big on mental health. If your kid's going through it, if your kid's having their first breakup with a girlfriend, that's real. They don't know how to handle those feelings. Come tell me about that, and I'll bring your kid in. And I'm helping. Like, it is a stool with 3 legs, right? It's player, coach, parent, and everybody's got to do their job. I'm big on that. You can also ask me, what's your playing time philosophy? And I'll tell you what it is. On the freshman level, it's this. On the JV level, it's this. On the varsity level, my playing time philosophy is win the game. And that's hard to take. That's the first level. And I don't think a lot of parents and coaches understand this. That's the first level, I think, where it's no longer developmental. I think freshman's developmental. I think JV's developmental. Varsity is win the game. And you may not like it, but that's how it is. That's what it is. I think if you say it like that, my playing time philosophy on the varsity is win the game. And I could do it so wrong, and I'm sorry about that, but I'm still the head coach, and I'll trust that I'll be better next year. And this is a big one. This goes to my approach on coaching is your kids, like I mentioned, that sophomore, like, one of the most powerful things a kid can do is knock on the door of that big, scary, intimidating man and say, "Coach, you have a minute?" And then as a coach, you listen. And that's a really powerful, fragile moment for that young man. And you teach them how to be a man. And, like, they might cry, they might shake. They don't, but, like, that's a real growth moment. Like, encourage your kid to have that hard, and don't sabotage them by doing it for them, but you also have to, and here's the thing, coaches, like, the parents got to trust you. Like, if they don't trust you, think you're a bad guy, they're not going to have that. They're not going to do that. So you have to be a trustworthy person that the parents respect. And then finally, do support the coach at the dinner table. I am confident. I love Charlie Bogus with all my heart, and love that man. At the dinner table, my parents just listened. And I know my parents went to the bedroom, they closed the door, they bashed him up one side and down the other, because I never played. But I never heard about it until much, 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 much later. And I know that parents need to know this. Parents need to know that when their kids are being coached, head coaches know when the coach's legs are being cut at the dinner table, because that kid just won't listen. Because my parents don't believe you. We don't believe you, coach. We don't trust you, coach. And they won't listen. This last year, I had a team that maybe should have missed the playoffs, maybe. But, like, we went to state because the parents supported me, and I got some kids that just wanted to win so bad they couldn't see straight. And that doesn't happen by mistake. That happens because there's vertical alignment between players, coach, and parents. Well, a don't is you can't talk about X's and O's with me. You can't talk about playing time with me. I am real transparent with grade outs and how your kid performed versus how it's a competition within the team every day in practice. We're competing for minutes. You love each other, you love your teammates, but we've played 11 summer league games. I've graded out 11 summer league games. So when the guys start tonight versus Cole, they know why they're starting because they've been the best players, whether they're 2-year varsity players or fresh off the JV. These 10 have played better. We got to play Parish Episcopal for God's sake on Saturday, and the guys who played the best in the last 11 games, those are guys who are going to play the most. And I think you have to be. You got to be in charge. You got to be the head of it, and you got to have a philosophy because you're going to get called on it. I think that that the most powerful thing parents can do is have dinner and listen to their kid, let their kids vent about what was great and what sucked. And if mom and dad want to have a conversation behind closed doors, do it. Because when it's game time, everybody's high fiving. The parents are all sitting together. We're all cheering for everybody. You cheer for other people's kids as loudly as you cheer for your own kid. Don't let your behavior betray like your feelings. Like cheer for every single kid.
Love it. A lot to unpack from both of you. My wife will listen to this. I feel good. I feel like I'm in a good space as a parent right now because everything you said is the same message I have. And I want every parent listening to take a lot from that. That's next level stuff. All right. We're almost getting there. So let's talk about referees. Favorite subject, everyone. We've had some referees on. It always seems to come up. We'll keep it short, but some good things. And Coach Brewer, you sent them over to me. So we want to talk about retainment. And then, of course, we want to talk about the inconsistency. And we know if I polled 100 coaches in Texas, they would tell me the things that frustrate them the most is communication and inconsistency. It's always, those two always are top of mind, and maybe some other things, but they're always going to be in the top 5. So you can go first as you send it over to me. Talk a little bit about the retainment, and then we'll also talk about the inconsistency from chapter to region and all that good stuff.
Okay, I'll send this to all my coaching friends out there. And I tell this kids in my English class, kids are growing up. And I tell my son the same thing. I was like, Jack, life is easier when people like you. So when it comes to referees, I want all the best referees to call my games. I try to always, not during the game is different, right? Before the game, after the game, like I want to be kind and want to be supportive of these officials. One of the things that may be holding us back, just maybe, is your kids are in Dallas playing a tournament and they got to be knocked damn near unconscious to get a foul call. Then on Monday night they play a summer league game called by San Antonio chapter or whoever, and a guy plays great on-ball defense, way we teach, and they slam the door and they cut somebody off and it's a block. Maybe that is holding us back as a community. Because, here, I tell this guy all the time, guys, in practice, I don't call fouls because I want to win playoff games. And if you don't want to win playoff games, I'll call the foul and let you shoot free throws if you don't want to win playoff games. So, referees, you get out of there sooner, quit calling and make us get in the weight room, make us get stronger, make us, so that we go play a region 1 or region 2. We got a puncher's chance because we've been playing that way all year long. I think I've kind of come to terms with traveling and not traveling and the way I teach it so that I don't get caught off guard by that as much. But traveling was a big one for me a year or 2 ago. We teach footwork differently so that doesn't happen as much. But here's the thing, it's like police. Like you may not like the police, but I sure am glad we have them. Like you may not like referees, but we definitely have to have them. If you want to play games on Tuesday, Friday, if you keep fussing at them, parents, coaches, we're not going to have enough. And then we'll have to play games on Wednesday and Monday because there's not enough to fill games on Tuesday and Friday. You have to have them. So it's better if we just work together. And I've always been that way. I learned that from Charlie Bogus when, Bob Brasino and all those guys would have training in the Mule Dome. And I learned that. And that's what I try to do too, is support them so that they keep coming back. And then if you want to be selfish about it, like Brett does too, I want the good ones. I want the good ones in my gym to call the big games. So I always like the intimidatable ones too. I can shout charge 2 seconds before the charge actually occurs. And when there's a doubt in their mind, just shaking your head, Mark, and I scream charge 2 seconds before it happens. And they're like, there's doubt, charge. Damn right, charge.
Do you know how many clips I have of you running down the sideline going, charge? And how many you get? And I send it to the referee. I'm like, did you get swayed on this call? And they'll be like, no way. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'd have turned and look at you and said block to you, not even to it'd just be go right.
I don't, that's why you're scratched, Mark.
I've never worked the Alamo Heights game. And I don't mind saying this because I have been at the factory for 20 years. We're half a mile down the street, and I have integrity. And I've scratched you for 13 years, just so you know that, because I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. And you'd get no charges either. I'm just being real. No charges for you. Brett, what do you think about referees? And I do want to tell a story, though. And I tell a story a lot. You two are one of my favorite coaches. You're very supportive of referees. Brett, I've got to used to work a lot of your games. Always enjoyed working your games. But someone asked me at a camp, I was a clinician, and they said to me, what is the worst thing a coach has ever said to you? Like, do coaches upset you? And coaches rarely do. And you always come up because you hardly say anything. And I had a call in your game. It was bad. And you shouted at me, Mark, that is terrible. You are so much better than that. And it stung so bad. This must have been like 7, 8 years ago. And I was just like, wow, that really and it took me out of my game for about a minute, because we always talk about if we make a bad call, something happens, we got to move on to the next play. I couldn't get that out of my head. I'm like, wow, he's like one of the nicest coaches. And he just said that I'm better. I mean, it really hurt. So I always joke about that. So yeah, thank you for doing that to me. But it's just a funny story I always like to tell. And I have never shared that with you. Now I have the opportunity to do that. But, what do you think about referees, possibly in the city, the retainment and then inconsistency from chapter to region?
Well, first, let me apologize for that. I'd like to feel like I'm a lot better these days. I go into each game telling myself that, I'm going to conduct myself a certain way, and, emotions, it doesn't always happen, but
You're good.
we try. I think a lot of that goes with, retention is, we do have to treat these officials better, certainly from the parent side, from the coach side, because, coach can lead a lot of that, with how we speak to officials, doing it in the right manner. But I think also for coaches, just kind of outlining that to our parents as well, what we expect from them. I think that can help a lot. And then one of the things I have to get better at as a coach is just being patient with new guys who don't have the experience. It's very clear when they're on the floor that they don't have the experience. You can see it when they walk in the door. But I know we have to grow those guys. And so that's something as a coach, I've got to be a little bit better about. But I will say, we also don't want to see them in a big district ball game as well, right? So maybe one, if using them in the right times. I mean, I know we had one recently that I about lost my mind, but big district game with playoff spot on the line for both teams. There's two guys I've never seen before in my life, and then an older gentleman that hadn't ref one of our games in a lot of years. So that's the three right there. And to me, those things can't happen either. That's not fair to that official to put them in those environments. And then it's not fair for coaches and kids and teams. So that, all of that on the, retention side. But Coach Brewer nailed it on how we play. I don't know. I guess I look at most of the things as, not trying to change somebody else's behavior, but changing ours. So, when you get to big playoff games and you've got officials from other chapters and other parts of the state, you're not getting calls. Those things that we think are fouls or maybe are fouls at a certain point of the year are not happening. One of the big shifts for us in our program was just being able to play in some of those games so our kids bought into it, right? To be able to, the next year say in practice when we're not calling fouls and we're making our kids play through contact and be physical and be tough with the ball, for the ball handlers, to be able to say, look, was that a foul last year against Westlake when we had Houston chapter and there was 3 fouls the entire half, and you're playing Will Baker and KJ Adams and Darius McBride, you got 2 5-stars and a 3-star, and that's not a foul, right? And so when our kids were able to start to be in those environments, that's carried over to practice. But I do think that's something that is a challenge for high schools. Certainly is the way that the game can change when you get to the playoffs, and certainly if you have chapters from other areas in those situations, which is what happens most often at this point. You're going whether you're playing an Austin team or somebody that uses Greater San Antonio now, like you're going to end up probably with a neutral chapter, and your kids better be able to adjust.
Yeah. This is my space and I'm torn on it. And, I've talked to you both when I was the assigner. When I'm not the assigner, I still talk to a lot of referees and coaches all the time. I just think it comes from leadership at the top. I'm fortunate enough to work college basketball, so the NCAA gives us guidance. We get memos, videos, trainings. We have our regional clinic we go up to where we're able to ask questions. Every year we're able to put in rule changes we want, what we're seeing, what we're not seeing. So they're getting data from college referees. We just took out the ARC and the LDB from women's. Now they're allowed to have their shirts untucked. Possibly now the hot stove, how you have a hot stove and now you can actually, now that doesn't matter. There isn't a one touch. Now it's going to be based on if it affects rhythm, speed, quickness, balance. So the NCAA actually listens to us, which is nice. Every year we do that. And it's nice to see every 2 years is a rule change year. So they go, hey, this is what the coaches are saying. Here's what the referees are saying. Let's adjust. Fortunately, in high school, you guys have been around long enough. The rules have really, we've had some rule changes every once in a while, but have we ever really talked about what you're talking about, the inconsistency? There's no training with NFHS, THSBOA, TASO. I've told them so many times, you need to get videos out here. And I'm not being negative. When we get at the NCAA, we're hired. We're actually skilled referees, right? Who do you think needs more training? Skilled referees that are getting hired or ones that are brand new coming in? They need more training than anybody. So I think that's going to really help. And I agree with you both. I do believe San Antonio calls it very tight. I struggled with that when I was the assigner for the 2 years, really trying to let them just play a little bit more because it does. At the end of the day, I believe San Antonio can compete with Austin, Houston, Dallas. But when we play tight throughout the year and then you go there, it's really hard to kind of make those adjustments from coaches, kids. Everybody's confused. That game is done in a blur. And you're like, wow, there was just like you said, there was 3 fouls in the first half. We haven't had that for the last 25 plus games. I'm still heavily involved with this stuff. I'm trying to really make it happen. I agree. I think that's the biggest complaint I hear from coaches. Hopefully NFHS can get in here and do some things with training, and that's locally in San Antonio that we can just be a little more patient with our whistles and try to get consistent with, those other schools. We'll see. The podcast has kind of helped a little bit with getting people out here. That's the purpose of why we do this, just trying to get San Antonio on the same page from so many different entities that we have. So I appreciate you guys touching on that, being honest, and that's how we have these real conversations. All right, so let's dive into Q&As that came in to close out. First question for you, Coach Brewer, is just talk a little bit about how it is coaching your son.
It's been an absolute joy. I think that I have needed every single one of my 13 years as a head coach to do a good job with it. I'm not going to sit here and say we don't ever talk basketball around the house. It is the family business. We talk about it all the time. One thing I try to never coach Jack unless it's in practice. I think Jack knows how important the team is to me, and that if he gets my time to coach him in practice, that it's important, and then he listens. And he's done an incredible job of going from this past year not playing hardly at all to starting to not playing hardly at all. And I think that is a normal, healthy sophomore year. There's certain games, maybe he scored 17 and 14 against Bernie High. And then, in the playoffs, like he had like 5 points, 2 points, 0, like he hardly played. He helped us when he could help us. And I never put him in a situation to fail. And that's the same way I teach I coach all of our kids. But it is way more important for me and Jack to be able to enjoy a cold beer and watch a ball game when he's 22 than it is to, win right now. So that's a precious relationship, and I'm doing my best. But he's been great. Mom and I have been mostly okay, but it's been great.
Yeah, I talk to Jack every time he comes up here, and he's in a great space. And I think it's going to help him a lot. I love the way that I was kind of on the fence. I was like, I was messing with you and Meredith all the time. Is he going to start? I'd start him and this and this. I just like to mix it up a little bit. And your wife's like, yeah. See. I'm like, but I think you did a great job with him.
He went through sophomore year and and it was up and down. And I think he's earned his stripes a little bit. He's one of our best players. He's going to play a lot next year, and he's earned it. And I think that we did it okay.
Yeah, y'all did a good job. You really did. I'm looking forward to his junior year. I think he's going to be a stud. All right, Brett, next question for you. A funny one. You kind of touched on it, but has your coaching style changed from your first year? This is coming from someone that's known you a long time. I want to tell you who it came from.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things for me has been just having the confidence to be myself and to coach in a way that fits my strengths, my personalities, who I am. I think probably starting off, I needed to at some point realize that I couldn't be Stan Bonowitz. I couldn't be Buddy Mine. I wasn't going to be Dwayne Gerlich or Darvin Hall, the guys that I had worked for, just different personalities. And I think just having the confidence in myself to say, hey, this is who I am. All those influences are a part of who I am, and bringing them with me. But to be able to coach in a way that's true to who you are and what you believe in, I think that sounds simple, but that's something that's really difficult. And probably a lot of it just comes with reps and comes with the experience and having a better feel for for what things matter, and along with that, having a better feel for what things don't. And I think you have the idea that like everything matters and all of it, but we have to prioritize. We have to be able to set our standards where they are and the expectations where they are on certain things, and have a hard line on some things, and then other things, having a little more wiggle room and being open. And so I think we've kind of shifted on that. That's been a big thing. So all of that is part of the change. How that manifests itself in on-court play, I think we empower our players far more now with the structure that we've created. It's more of a structure that empowers them to go do the things that they do well and have the freedom to do that. And I think that collective environment has been something that has allowed our teams to excel because the individuals within it have all been able to kind of find their place, as opposed to more of that being dictated by me. We hope that it kind of happens more organically through the structure and the environment that we put them in.
Yep, great answer. Yeah, and I agree. You guys do play different kind of in over the last 10 plus years based on your personnel. I can say that. Yes, O'Connor's always going to play this way, but I've seen you kind of with different players that I've either worked with or known that I definitely can contest to that. So yeah, a really good answer. All right, for both of you, this is an interesting question. It came from a parent. But how is it important to like an athlete? And I'll kind of give you an example. I truly believe it is. Like if a kid walks into the factory, sometimes we're like, I kind of roll our eyes like this. We're like, yes, I'm excited you're here for a camp or for a workout. So, but just from a high school perspective, it's a little different because we have kids all different ages. I love some 6-year-olds and I don't like some 6-year-olds. That's different, right? They're so different at that age. But from a high school perspective, Brett, will go with you first. How important is it for you to actually really like the athlete that you're coaching?
I think it's incredibly important. I mean, just first of all, from a job satisfaction standpoint, the amount of time that we spend with these guys, if they're people that you really like and really enjoy being around, and we've been so blessed at O'Connor to have a program full of those type of kids, it makes all the difference in the world. So not only do we enjoy being around them, they enjoy being around each other. Brewer hit on earlier about, if you're light, what a difference that can make for you. I think that's big for us as coaches as well. Like it's not a dictatorship. Like we're part of a collective, and certainly we have a role as coaches, where we do have to make tough decisions at times and things like that. So that's not to say that those hard conversations don't happen, but I think being in an environment where kids enjoy being around each other, kids enjoy being around their coaches, and vice versa. That's a really healthy place to be. And when you have that, you're going to have engagement, you're going to have motivation, and you're going to get the most out of everybody when it's there.
Okay, love it. The next add-on question for you, Brewer, is: do you want to be liked as a coach?
I mean, it's one of those things that you don't really control. I mean, yeah. I mean, the answer is, yeah, I want you to. I mean, life. I do believe life's easier when people like you. It may sound like I'm not answering the question, but I really am. Once, and I'm sure Brett will agree. Like once you have kids, you understand that I love all of my players, and I'm never going to say something to a player that I wouldn't say to my own kid. I think off the court, liking them helps, but I like winning more than I like any of my players. So I mean, I love to win. I like to win. So if you help me win, I like you. So no, but I love all of my players, and I try to. I think it's not that important. I really don't. I think that we're on a team, and you're going to go to work with people you don't like, and I think that I can find things in every kid that I really like, and also every kid has a quality that I don't love about them, but every kid has a quality that I can appreciate, and I think that that's just the world. I don't know whether I like you or not. If you can bury this shot, I'm running to play for you, and if I love you and you can't play, you're not going to I think it matters a little bit, but not that much.
Yeah, I feel like
Go ahead, Brett.
we're aligned on, but maybe on this one just a little bit different, I guess, because
Yeah.
I do think it's important. I do. Now, what I'll say is it's not is pandering.
For sure.
In an
Good
effort
word.
to be like. I think that's the difference. If you're doing that, then that's a fallacy as well. I tell there's every year you talk about transfer portal and things like that. Every year, like in Northside with the middle schools, it seems like there's always kids saying, "Oh, this kid says he's going to go to this program, or he might go to this program, or he might go to that." And our coaches will tell me these things, and I always tell them, I said, the ones that are doing all those kind of things, they're not going to end up at O'Connor because we're not going to tell them what they want to hear. They're looking for something specific. We're not going to do that. If a kid lives in our zone, and they want to, buy in and to what we're doing and how we're doing it, I think it's going to work out really well for them. But there's got to be that level of trust to come do that. But the ones that are looking for you to say something specific or promise something, that's just not who we are. And that, I think, probably goes to what Coach Brewer is saying, is if you're pandering for that kind of thing, then you're probably undercutting your program.
All right. Next question, your most painful loss.
I got to 2013 overtime regional finals to Brennan. We had the game won, and we were 2 points away from going to state back-to-back years. And then in 2016, we had Edinburgh Vela in the regional semifinals. Had that game won, missed some layups. Those two stung bad.
What they say, if you lose by under 5, it's coach's fault. Is that what they say? Yeah. Okay.
It's fair.
All right. Yeah, no, I'm just
Players
messing
win.
I missed all.
Brett, yours?
Ours would be 2021, Austin Westlake in the regional semifinals. That was our first regional appearance in program history, and we were up 10 with 3 minutes left against a phenomenal Westlake team. Those guys only lost 2 games all year. Both were to Duncanville. The second one was in the state championship to Duncanville. Kind of a what might have been type of thing, but also credit to KJ Adams.
Yeah, he's a stud. All right, thank you. All right, last one. All right, so favorite basketball movie?
Hoosiers.
I knew it.
Hoosiers, old school.
Both of y'all Hoosiers. Okay, all right.
What's even in the conversation, Mark? Come
I'm
on,
not giving you mine.
because you're gonna be wrong.
Yeah, there you go. Because I haven't had one person agree with mine, so I'm not even going to do it. All right, so good. Hoosiers is fine, no problem. All right. You like Blue Chips? Blue Chips not my favorite, but can we go with that? You didn't like Blue Chips?
That's funny. It's entertaining.
It is, but not. Yeah. Okay.
But Hoosiers is life changing and a philosophy for life. Blue Chips is just a nice little movie.
Makes sense. Okay. All right. Well, fellas, I appreciate you both coming on. So much to unpack from this podcast. I always enjoy listening to you, both watching you coach as well. Best of luck in the off season. I'll be keeping up with you during the season. Again, if you need anything from a referee standpoint, don't call me, call somebody else. But again, thanks for coming on. Again, good luck to you both. We'll be talking soon. Take care.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Mark.
All right, you guys be good. Thank you for listening to the Dropping Dimes podcast. Make sure to go follow us on IG at Dropping Dimes Pod. Remember, each Friday we'll be dropping a new episode, so hit the follow and bell notification buttons to never miss any content. Let's get better together. We out.